It's no secret to Nomad Capitalist viewers that many Western countries have high taxes, and that many of those Western countries are increasingly looking to raise those taxes, particularly on those that have fallen out of favor with the population. People who create jobs, people who start businesses, people who have amassed wealth. But only one country every year can take the cup as having the highest tax burden in the entire world, and I'm going to tell you what it is. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson, and here at Nomad Capitalist, we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors who just don't want to pay 50% of their money. They might like to pay 5% of their money, or 8% of their money, or maybe sometimes 0% of their money if it's allowed. But we help those entrepreneurs and investors legally go where they're treated best. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. And I came across an interesting article that I wanted to share with you that reveals the country with the highest tax burden for 2019 among members of the OECD. The OECD is basically a lobbying group for higher taxes of 37 countries. They go around the world pressuring small countries that offer tax competition. They go around bullying offshore banking centers, which is one of the reasons why I've said onshore is the new offshore. Banking on a tiny island, incorporating on a tiny island, not always the idea anymore because of people like the OECD. Now, side note, what's fascinating is if you work at the OECD, you actually don't pay taxes because you are an international person. You don't pay taxes where you actually live, so that is the fun part. But they revealed in the report that in 2019, Denmark had the highest tax burden in 2019 among all of their members. And the story goes like this. Denmark tops the list of countries with the highest tax burden, according to a new report released by the OECD, which assesses the tax burdens in the world's 37 most developed countries. I take umbrage with the fact that they're the most developed countries. You have plenty of very well-developed countries in Asia and elsewhere that are not members. But of course, that's the narrative. The narrative is if you want to get good government services, if you want good value, you have to have a high-tax country. Taxes are the price we pay for civilization. I've driven on the roads growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, and I've driven on the roads in Dubai. You give me the roads in Dubai any day you want. The article continues. Denmark will be invited to the OECD annual convention to claim its prize as thanks for being, I just added that part. Denmark has the highest tax to GDP ratio in 2019 of 46.3%, said the report released on Thursday. This report was released in December of 2020 because when you are a high tax country, it takes you 11 whole months to figure out last year's tax burden. In second place for the last 2 years, Denmark just couldn't take it anymore, and they were able to leapfrog previous incumbent of France, which won in 2017 and 2018 due to a divergent increase in taxation compared to the other members. Between 2018 and 19, the largest tax ratio increase was in Denmark at 2 percentage points of GDP, read the annual publication, as they lauded the country for doing such a great job in pillaging more money from their citizenry, which compares tax and taxation structures. This was due to an increase in income taxes, 2.4 percentage points offset by a fall in consumption tax revenues other than the value-added tax. The rest of the article is boring and just lots of gobbledygook. So congratulations to Denmark. Now, a couple interesting things. We have talked on numerous occasions over the years about the Index of Economic Freedom put out by a group called the Heritage Report in the United States. They have ranked Denmark as having the 8th freest economy in the world. And so while I do agree with a lot of their rankings, and I love the index and love sharing some of the conclusions from it, I do think that for a lot of individuals and individual entrepreneurs running small businesses, relying merely on these Western-centric rankings of which countries are the most free is not going to make you the most free, because the 8th most free economy in the world has the highest tax burden on planet Earth. You can take all of your easy customs procedures and setting up electricity in one day. I will gladly wait a couple extra days for electricity to not pay half of my income in taxes. And I've been to Denmark, and I've been to Sweden, and I've heard people literally standing on the train tracks saying, I thought your trains were always on time. Oh, well, you wouldn't believe. We lowered taxes from 59 to 55%, and this is the chaos that entails, the chaos that ensues. Now, Denmark, before that France, they were number one. But here's the real question. How close is your country? People have often told me, well, the United States is no picnic. I'm from the US, and they've said, yeah, but you know what? It could be worse. You could be in Europe. And so there is some validity to that. On average, if you live in the United States, your tax burden is lower than that of someone who is living and running a business in Denmark or in France or in a number of other European countries. What you do have, however, is other European countries, particularly in Eastern and Southern Europe, who have lowered taxes, introduced flat taxes. You have countries like Portugal and others who have rolled out tax exemptions. You have countries who have introduced lump sum tax programs. You have countries like Singapore, the UAE, Malaysia, which have had very tax-friendly programs. And so, what I like to look at is, do you care that much that someone else has a slightly higher tax burden when your tax burden is still pretty egregious? Because I talk to people from all the English-speaking Western countries, as well as people from Egypt and Morocco and Brazil and all over the world. But I talk to people from Australia and the US and Canada and the UK, and many of them are paying between 40 and 50 cents on the dollar or euro or pound of their income to the government, no matter what form that's taking. And they don't particularly feel like their country is that much more economically free. And so if you can go to a place with better roads, with better health care potentially, where potentially you have more personal freedom in some of these countries, and you can go to one of the lowest tax countries in the world, and it's all legal, the countries welcome you. They do everything short of bringing you a fruit basket. And in the case of Georgia, they oftentimes do give away bottles of wine to tourists to encourage them to come and stay and spend and potentially even invest in the country. Why wouldn't you go to those countries? Because this is a group, this OECD, of 37 countries that have gotten together with the goal of squashing competition. People in the country, people in the citizens of these countries, if you're in the US, if you're in Australia, if you're in any of the countries that are in the OECD, no doubt you are not spending your evenings eating at sushi restaurants that you don't like merely because there was no other choice. Now, these days, they got you locked in your house. You're not eating at anyone's sushi restaurant. But, why is it that only when it comes to taxation should there be no competition? That's the mission of the OECD. And the fact that Denmark was number one and France was number two doesn't mean that your country, which is probably a member of this group, isn't ranking relatively highly as well. Into the scheme of things in all the world and all the different 200 plus jurisdictions around the world, your country still probably has one of the highest tax burdens. And so if there's a difference of 47 versus 41%, big deal. So why I tell people who move from California to Florida to save on state taxes, great, you saved yourself 13%. You're still paying 3 times that much in federal taxes. You're still paying Social Security tax. You're still paying Medicare. You're still dealing with all the regulations. Why not just go where you're treated best? Because if you are living in one of the 37 countries, one of the 37 high-tax Western countries that are a member of this OECD, you are paying a lot more than you need to, and chances are your politicians, your bureaucrats are going to the events that the OECD holds, where they literally write text that reads laudatory, that acts as if Denmark is doing a great job for increasing its taxation, for making life more difficult for businesses, for taking more of your money. If your bureaucrats are going and hanging out around that, then where do you think they're getting the ideas for all the taxes we say that are coming up? The wealth tax, for introducing UBI and raising taxes, for all kinds of new taxes on businesses who have too much money. Where do you think they get the idea to talk about excess profits, as if you're making money and your success is a crime? So merely your country being a member of the OECD, Westerners, is enough that even though you're not number one, higher taxes are coming, your taxes could be much lower, and you need to evaluate all of the countries outside of the Western world who aren't going and listening to this propaganda and decide where you can go and truly, personally and financially, be treated not better, but best. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, Learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.